Hey everyone, James Niggemeyer here. Thank you for tuning back into my YouTube channel. My last video was my fall bait box. That included 3 deep baits and 3 shallow baits. Today I want to look at one bait in particular that came out of the shallow section. It's a bait that a lot of times gets only viewed as a great pre-spawn into the springtime of the year. It's a bait that works year-round, but it's a tremendous fish producer for me in the fall of the year. And that's a vibrating lipless crankbait. I have done really well with this bait, say from September all the way through to the shad spawn. I mean, it's just a great bait for catching fish that are feeding on baitfish. And that's what they're doing this time of year, that fall migration. They're just focused on bait. Couple things that I think really make this a great producer for the fall. Obviously the profile. Whether you've got a lake that's got herring in it, or threadfin, or gizzard, or shiners, or alewives, wherever you are in the country, it's just got a tremendous baitfish profile that just mimics baitfish that bass eat wherever they are in the country. So that's number one. Number two, obviously those rattles. Oh my goodness. There's something about the rattles in these baits that even if a fish can see it coming from a distance, or if it's just right there, it elicits that feeding response from fish. Something about that loud sound or the rattles coming through the water. Another thing that works really well is because of the design of this bait, it shimmies through the water just like a baitfish, just got that tight vibration, works really well. I think the combination of the sound and the flash and the look as it comes through the water really it just says baitfish. So obviously I've hammered that point home. Another thing that's great about it is you can vary the depth you fish it at, basically because it sinks. It's a sinking bait. If you want to fish it in 2 foot of water, I'll just fire it out there, keep my rod tip up, and keep it above the surface or above the bottom of the lake in 2 to 3 foot of water. I can keep it up there just like this, and just increasing my speed, but also keeping the rod tip up will keep it up off the bottom in the shallows and on the flats. But then sometimes, the fish, you'll graph them and they're down there 6, 8, 10 feet of water, maybe 20 feet of water. Just throw it out there, let it sink to the bottom, just like a football jig or Carolina rig, what have you. Just take up the slack and I'll rip it up, and with my rod tip, I'll just rip it, or just even a pull and drop, kind of lift and then drop. And what that does is, lifts it up off the bottom and then it shimmies back to the bottom, kind of like a spoon. It just lifts it up off the bottom, and the whole time it's just brrr, and then it shimmies back to the bottom. That's another great thing about this. As you kill this bait on retrieve, it shimmies back to the bottom, which definitely draws reaction strikes. It looks like dying baitfish. And obviously when the bass are focused on schools of bait, and they're just trying to take advantage of the one that's the weakest, the one that's the easiest prey. And so when that thing falls to the bottom and it has something erratic, it's just swimming along, and you kill it and it just falls or shimmies, or you lift it and then kill it, whatever it is, that'll draw a reaction strike, whether you're in 3 foot of water or 20 feet of water. So super versatile. It's a great bait. I primarily fish it in shallows, but will work out in deeper water. Another thing that's great about it is whether they're chasing bait up in 2 foot of water, or you're just going down the bank, maybe you're fishing a bluff and they start blowing up out in the middle of the lake, it's just incredible to have a Strike King red eye shad ready to go on the deck of your boat. You just fire it out there. You can zing it too. That's another thing that's great about it. It's a 1/2 ounce, so it just fires really well. You can throw really well. It cuts through the air very nicely. Throw it out there where the fish are schooling, start cranking it back, and boom, you're going to get some of those fish chasing bait and feeding on those bait fish out there over 30, 40, 50 feet of water. It's a great bait to have in the boat, on the deck in the fall of the year. Talk about colors a little bit. When it comes to colors, obviously I picked up this gold blackback. In East Texas, or in Texas in general, you have, even Louisiana, and even Arkansas, you have some of this tannic colored water or tea colored water. I think it's the acidity of the pine trees and different things like that. It's kind of a tea or brown type water. That gold blackback works really well for that. Sometimes you have rain runoff, and that adds a little more color to the water, so the gold shows up really well in some of the off-colored water also. And on overcast days or rainy days, that gold blackback, I think, does really well. Just kind of like spinnerbaits. Spinnerbaits, off-colored water, and overcast days, that gold really works well. That Strike King red eye shad in the sexy shad pattern works really well. Something about that white Obviously white, you use white soft jerk baits, you have white top waters, you have white spinner baits, and you have white swim jigs. So a white striking red eye shad is also a catcher. And then it's really hard to beat like a chrome sexy shad. That chrome sexy shad, that flash as it goes through the water, that shininess. You know, a lot of times you see that on a bright day, the shad are just shiny like that, flittering through the water. And there's something about that guy as you're cranking him back to the boat and he's just shimmying like that. It looks just like a bait fish. So definitely you want to have something that's chrome, something that's white, and a gold blackback for imitating bait fish. And then I would also think about sound patterns. Obviously your traditional red eye shad or lipless crankbait has those little BBs in it. And then obviously you have some different ones that make some different sounds. This is a striking 2-tap and it has that knocking rattle in there. There are times when they want one over the other. So keep that in mind. I think it's great to have the selection or great to have a choice. Again, they want that rattle and then sometimes they want that knock. So for sure, it'd be great to have a couple of those on hand as well. If you're out there and the bait are super small, sometimes they'll really be size specific and that 1/4 ounce can really be a catcher. I really feel like in the fall of the year, there's a lot of those little bitty bait fish that are up against the bank and that 1/4 ounce mimics them really well. Getting into the gear, I actually like to throw it on a carbon fiber or a graphite rod. This is a Team Loose Custom Pro and it's a 7'3" medium heavy. And guys will be like, well, why do you like throwing a carbon fiber or graphite type rod? And a lot of people say crankbaits use fiberglass. Well, I think that's great. And I use fiberglass for a lot of my crankbait fishing. But when it comes to a red eye shad, I like the little bit extra length, the 7'3", but I also like a little bit more tip through it. I like the fact that I can feel that thing just vibrating in the water. Sometimes that vibration will get dull and that'll be a fish that'll have it. Or you just be, you know, working it, lift, drop, maybe yo-yoing it, and you'll feel like a tick, just like a worm bite. So I want that sensitivity, but I also want this, because a lot of times I'm fishing it around grass, and some grass will get caught in some grass, and sometimes that's a way to work it, is to worm it through the grass, and you want to be able to rip it clean, to clean your hooks. And that graphite, because it's a little bit more stout than fiberglass, enables you to rip that bait clean, rip it out of the grass, draws a reaction strike. So I like the carbon fiber. 7'3", medium heavy. This is their Magnum hammer. And then I like a fast gear ratio, like a 7.5-to-1 gear ratio reel. Team Loose Custom Pro. And I like a kind of a little bit more than middle of the road line size. I like either 14 to 16 pound test. This is Gamma fluorocarbon, Gamma Edge fluorocarbon. I like that because it offers sensitivity, low stretch, and if I throw it out there way away from the boat with that low stretch, I can set the hook on them and bring them to the boat. That's just a closer look at the red eye shad or the lipless or vibrating style crankbaits. Of course, you see this one here. This is a color that's kind of new to Strike King, a couple years now. These Baitfish or photo finish patterns. I like these. I've caught some on these, but since they're new, I haven't caught as many on this as I have the gold, the sexy shad, and the chrome sexy shad. This does catch them, don't get me wrong. But so definitely maybe grab some of those, especially in clear water. Those Baitfish type, photo finish profiles really work well also. Couple of things. When I'm fishing this thing in shallow water, I'll throw it out there and keep my rod tip up, and that faster gear ratio allows me to keep it from going into the bottom, even in 2 foot of water. But you got to keep your rod tip up and really crank it like that. When I'm fishing it deeper, I'll throw it out there, let it sink to the bottom like a football jig or a Carolina rig, and then I'll take up the slack and I'll worm it, or I'll lift and drop, and that'll enable that bait to and then fall, and then fall. So that works really well in that situation. So it's versatile. It's a bait that you got to have on hand in the fall, in my opinion. Works just really well at catching fish, locating fish. I think a lot of times in the fall you'll have times where you'll go through a lot of areas, a lot of places, and you won't catch any fish, and then you'll come across an area where, boom, there's bait fish. That's where they're feeding. And a lot of times these will help you find them, and a lot of times they're just the best lure in the box to catch them, but you got to have them on in the fall, in my opinion. That's it for now, guys. Thank you for watching my YouTube channel. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you feel like you got a friend that might really enjoy this or get something from it, take the link, add it to your social media. It's really the only way that this channel grows. I appreciate your comments. Always like communicating with you guys. Hope you guys are doing well, and until next time, thanks for watching and good fishing.